Hi, I'm Julie Trude, the Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area. Today, we're going to hear more about the metro area watersheds. It's kind of a mysterious topic to many of us, and we're going to get this clarified. We have an expert locally, Wes Volkenand, who happens to be the treasurer for the League of Women Voters, ABC. He's been involved in a study of the metro area watersheds that's going to be conducted coming up soon to evaluate what do they do and how do they work within our area. And this is on behalf of a group of League of Women Voters in the metro area called the Council of Leagues of the Metropolitan Area, if I have that right. And Wes is our representative, serves on their board, and he's one of the individuals heading the study. And within Anoka County, we have several watersheds, and he'll oversee studies of those watersheds. And this information will all be compiled. It'll become a public report, and I'm sure he'll tell you more, and there'll be activities and questions for members of League of Women Voters. If this is a topic that interests you and you are not a member, it would be a great time to join and become more involved and active. So now I'd like to introduce Wes Volkenand to present tonight's topic, Who Manages Our Watersheds?
Thank you, Julie, and welcome to everybody. It's good to see on the screen in front of me a number of our friends from LWV ABC. There's also a few guests. I want to acknowledge that in our midst, we actually have some other water experts. We have people from our conservation board. In fact, 3 members are in our audience tonight and are members of LWV ABC, but we've also been joined by, I see Don Doring from Coon Rapids, Coon Creek Watershed District, and it's good to have some other real experts in our midst as well. So thank you all. And for those that are watching this potentially on the QCTV feed, this tonight is going to be kind of a somewhat detailed, but a general high-level look at not only some of the aspects of our organization looking at watershed management, but also literally aspects of watershed management here in the metropolitan area. 7-county metro area has 33 different organization units, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means in this area. So I am going to share, and hopefully we're going to pop into my PowerPoint. Okay, hopefully everybody has got the opening screen, Who Manages Our Watersheds. So I want you to think about this. Almost all of our water here in Minnesota actually begins right here in Minnesota. In fact, any water pollution that results is our collective responsibility. We cannot blame another state or Canada for what we experience here in Minnesota. And also think about this, almost all of the watersheds here in Minnesota ultimately land in the Mississippi River. There's a couple like on the far west and way in the northeast part of Minnesota that go in other directions, but for the most part, about 90% of Minnesota, the water literally ends up flowing to the Mississippi River. And that was a picture of the river. So think about why we should care about watersheds. And as I do that, I'm going to bring up a short YouTube video that's out there that talks a little bit about this. So bear with, we're going to leave the PowerPoint. We're going to go to this little video, and then I will bring you back at the end of this video.
We're at the Chattahoochee Nature Center, and we're trying to find out what a watershed is. First victim. I need you to tell me what a watershed is. Do you have any idea?
Watershed?
A watershed? Where people go to the bathroom?
Sweating, I guess.
Something to do with sweating?
Uh-huh.
Like after you run, when you...
You perspire, yeah.
And then you shed it?
Uh-huh.
We wanted to ask you if you knew what a watershed was.
A watershed?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like the rain?
Do you know what a watershed is?
A shed that holds water.
Come here for a second. I want to ask you something. Do you know what a watershed is?
No. No.
Do you have any idea? What do you think it has something to do with?
I don't know.
What a watershed is?
Yeah.
That's just a drain pool, I guess you'd say, or the drain area. is where the rainwater drains into the river.
Correct. That's a great answer.
A watershed is that area of land that drains to a body of water, be that if it's a river, a stream, the ocean, an estuary, a bay. Wherever you live drains to some water body, and you live in a watershed. So everyone lives in a watershed.
I want you to think about first, what does a local watershed district, in this case, the Coon Creek Watershed District, actually engage in? What are the types of things that they are involved with? And you can see that what they've identified at their website includes reducing pollution, preventing flooding, promoting stewardship, planning for cleaner water, protecting our lakes and streams, and trying to balance growth and protection. Those are all things that the Coon Creek Watershed District has identified that they are engaged in. In this presentation, I've got 6 places I've been planning to go with you. What is the CMAL? We'll talk about that in just a moment. It is, as Julie explained in her introduction, a metro area league organization. We're going to introduce to you watershed management organizations, and you'll see that there are actually 3 types of watershed management organizations in the metro area. We're going to compare those organizations with the soil and water conservation districts, which I noted earlier when talking about who was in attendance tonight. We have 3 members of a soil and water conservation district here in our midst. We're going to talk a little bit about CMAL's 2024 watershed study that I am part of. And then we'll take a closer look at actually the 7 county metro areas organizations by county, not in the broader view, but by county. That we're just going to kind of quickly highlight for you so that at the end, we'll take a closer look at Anoka County's actual watershed districts and watershed management organizations. And then we'll wrap up with a resource list for you and take questions at the end of it. So, as your presenter tonight, this is giving you my background and credentials for being here tonight. I am not an expert by any means, but I have become a lot more familiar with the whole concept of watershed districts and what they are engaged in. And I'm hoping to learn more as we do this study about especially the ones here in our Anoka County area. As I mentioned, the Council of Metro Area Leagues is represented by the 7 county metro area. Julie Trude and I are both CMAL representatives at the current from our organization here in Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids. I was actually appointed in 2021 and then became elected to a full term as a director the following year. So I'm currently serving a term on CMAL. What is CMAL? It is, as we noted, an organization representing across the 7 county area. It was founded over 50 years ago. It has written a number of educational publications that have metro area issues related to it, things related to the Metropolitan Council, related to, as we did look at the whole fiscal disparities issue back in the 1970s. And more recently, we worked in 2020 to work on updating the position on county government. Some of you will remember that study. Deanne Christensen and I were a part of that study. It came out finally in beginning of 2022. But as you can see, maybe, because it's very small probably now on your screen, in areas that they've looked at include health, housing, transportation, land use and environmental quality, the Met Council itself, county government, as I mentioned, financing, metropolitan services. Those are all areas that through the years, the CMAL has taken a look at. And at our 2023 annual meeting, we moved to start a study, metro area based study, to inform. And the key word here is to inform. We're not agitating for a position in this study, but we have decided to do a study to inform an area that we think is very little understood and very little even known about in terms of our watershed districts. At that time, we were focused just on watershed districts. So let's talk about our watershed organizations. Thinking about Anoka County, we took a look and saw some areas that Coon Creek Watershed District had identified earlier in this program. Now we're going to look at some actual projects that the Rice Creek Watershed District has been working on. And just by the visuals, you can see some of those types of things that they've been doing. In the top row, Centerville has been dealing with a whole late alum treatment issue that they've got going on. Forest Lake High School had to do an entire water reuse circumstance. In the bottom row, Hugo County had an issue on their Road B where they were dealing with stormwater reuse. Going on, Joanna Creek, this is Rice Creek. We'll talk about where that is, but for those that know Lake Joanna, they had to deal with a whole carp barrier in that area, or having to deal with down on the bottom row, they had to create a whole new outlet structure out of the Prudy Lake, which is down in the, I believe, the Ramsey County area. So again, these are the types of things that we find that are things that they are engaged in. So let's talk basics. What is a watershed district? We're talking just watershed district now. These were created in the Watershed Act of 1955. And the intent was to develop water management policies on a watershed basis, because water does not follow political boundaries. Watershed districts conserve natural resources of the state by doing land use planning, flood control projects, other conservation projects by using sound scientific principles with the intent to protect public health and natural resources. So you're going to see a few maps along the way. This is the first map that you get to experience. And this map is showing you that there are 14 watershed districts here in the metro area. This was initially what the CMAL study was going to contemplate taking a look at. Here in Anoka County, you can see that numbers 12 and 13 up there, 12 being the Rice Creek Watershed District, and you can kind of get a sense of how large that is. And 13, I think, is a little more familiar to some of us here in the ABC group. We have one of the representatives in our call tonight from the Coon Creek Watershed District. However, I think you also noticed that there was a lot of gray space, and that did not begin to really cover all that we're going to learn about watershed districts tonight. Here's a statewide map. It's the only time we're going to really look statewide, and those areas in blue are other watershed districts. You can see that they're very, very prominent along the western part of the state where the Red River falls. But you'll see that's also kind of near the St. Cloud area, and then right along the Iowa border, there are also some watershed districts. But you'll also notice there are some very, very large amounts of gray area across the state of Minnesota. In the metro area, the Met Council and others saw a need for other watershed organizations that could address the surface water needs in those remaining parts of the 7-county metro area. So in 1982, the legislature approved the Metropolitan Area Surface Water Management Act. And this requires local units of government within the 7-county area to prepare and implement comprehensive surface water management plans through a watershed management organization. So bear this in mind. There are watershed districts, there are watershed management organizations. Interestingly, watershed districts can be recognized as part of a watershed management organization. But you saw that in the metro area, there were a lot of parts of the metro area, including here in Anoka County, that did not have watershed districts from the 1955 Act. And so this sets up watershed management organizations in those other areas. These are organized in 3 different ways. They can be organized as a joint powers agreement between cities and townships within the organization. They can be organized as a watershed district based on that 1955 Act, or they can be a function of county government, usually administered by the county planning department. And we're going to show you that all 3 types are recognizable within the metro area. If you take a look at this map, you'll see that the blue areas are those areas that we looked at a short time ago. You notice again, up in Anoka County, we have the Coon Creek and we have the Rice Creek watershed districts. But in green, we have replaced those gray areas in Anoka County and gray areas in a number of the other counties with a watershed management organization or more than one. And if you'll look real closely, you'll see 3 distinct watershed management organizations in the northern part and western part of Anoka County. And what you may not catch, you look real close in the bottom southeast corner of Anoka County coming out of Ramsey, you'll see a little green one poking like a finger up into Anoka County. We'll talk about that one a little bit later as well. And then I want you to recognize that while the northern part of the metro area did not do so, the southern part of the metro area had counties take over and become the people that were administering watershed activities in Dakota County, significant right across the central part of the county, almost all of Scott County, and very much almost all of Carver County have their watershed activities managed by the county itself. They have a lot of similarities. For example, how they receive revenue, property taxes, state aid. As we've already talked, Dakota, Scott, Carver chose to put their activities in the hands of a county office to administer. But watershed management organizations and watershed districts have independent offices that are administered and staffed with boards that are appointed by the county boards. And that's also something important to recognize. These are appointed positions by county boards. They're not appointed by cities. They're not appointed by townships. They're appointed by county boards. And I'm assuming that as we do the study, we'll probably learn that there are differences in how that works within each of the counties. I've already recognized a little bit of that just by some of what I've captured here in Anoka County that we'll talk about a little later in this particular slideshow. Talked about this, but a watershed management organization is both a general term because watershed districts can be included under that term, but it also very specifically applies to a certain type of watershed organization here within the metropolitan area. Now, the next part of what we're going to talk about is talking very briefly about the other major water-oriented organization has long roots here in Anoka County as well as across the state of Minnesota. There are 6 county-wide soil and water conservation districts in the metro area. I find it interesting that Hennepin County does not have a soil and water conservation district. We are not, as CMAL, going to include these in our study. We're going to focus strictly on the watershed organizations and not the conservation districts. But as we noted earlier tonight, we do have 3 elected members of the Anoka County Soil and Water Conservation District here in our membership, Glenda Meixel, Mary Jo Tucson, and Colleen Verdeen, and they are all with us in this call this evening, and I'm sure they're probably writing up some really good questions for me in chat. I want you to take note down on the bottom there that the purpose of the Soil and Water Conservation Districts is to conserve soil, water, and related natural resources on private land. A very important distinction, I believe. There are some differences. Each soil and water conservation district is governed by a 5-member board of supervisors that are elected by the citizens of the county. These folks are not appointed. They stood for election, and I believe each of these boards staggers so that not the entire board is up at the same time. One exception is where there would be a tribal band that would have a supervisor appointed. And they are responsible for policy development, annual plans, long-range plans, and budgets. I'm sure the numbers must be fun for our participants here tonight to have to deal with, but that's a big part of what they deal with. The other significant piece, and I think somebody talked briefly about this in our social chat time beforehand, is that the unelected appointed members of the non-county watershed management organizations have the ability to tax residents for their funding on annual property tax statements. On the other hand, the elected Soil and Water Conservation District does not have the ability to tax residents and rather has to rely on county funding and fees principally. Obviously, we noted that there are some funds that come from the state as well, but they are reliant on the county in a very different way than the watershed districts and management organizations are. Wanted to note one place where this may matter in Anoka County, and that is that when the funding request was made in last year's budget for the county, they were asking for a groundwater specialist, which would have been a $64,000 a year position. This was actually left unfunded, is my understanding, in the 2024 budget. And we know that that is going to limit the ability of the Soil and Water Conservation District to do its work. This is a position that the ABC group, after hearing a presentation on this last year, we did take a position in support of funding that particular position. And as I said, as my understanding, it did not go through. All right, so where did that leave our watershed study committee? We, as I noted, decided that we are going to take on all 33 watershed entities. And what we decided for our 2024 study was to divide those 33 entities up amongst our various League of Women Voter chapters that are closest in proximity to the various groups. In our case, ABC Group has been assigned Coon Creek Watershed District, Sunrise River, Lower Rum River, and Upper Rum River Watershed Management Organization. So we've been assigned 4 of those particular groups that we are going to study. What we will do is we will go out and compile individual reports. It's probably going to be over at least the next month or so. I have appreciated getting in touch with some of our members who have volunteered, and we actually have an outside individual that I need to connect with that has also volunteered to assist on this study. And we're going to be in the gathering information. The CMAL group will be preparing and putting out a questionnaire. Many of the points on the questionnaire will probably be identified. Information will be found on their websites, maybe a Facebook site. But we will certainly have questions that are not answerable that we will connect with the responsible managers, directors of these organizations to complete our collecting of information. And then what we'll do is we'll collect our 4. I will take responsibility for getting those. And by the May annual meeting, we're hoping to have our reports submitted for all of the 33 watershed organizations. I don't know that they will all get done. And so it's very possible that this summer, we will actually have a team of people who will compile those reports further, and work on perhaps getting ones that we did not receive, getting those completed as well. As I told you up front, unlike the county transparency and accountability report, where we really did actually call out very specific things that we were looking for action on, this report on the watershed management organizations is really intended to inform you as members and inform the public about matters that might lead to a future course of action. Initially, they are going to be items that will help to better educate us all about this very vital part of our governmental and community experiences. I've got a different kind of map for you here. Lines and boundaries, I call this one. If you look on the right-hand side, you should see the word Elk River and toward the bottom Lakeville, and you can kind of picture that you should see those various watershed organizations that we saw earlier kind of scribbled through there. But what I also wanted you to see was this is a perspective within a 75-mile radius west and south. So up to St. Cloud and even beyond the St. Cloud area out toward Wilmer, southward towards getting towards Rochester direction, and even as you can see encroaching along the Wisconsin border there on the east side. This gives you a different perspective of where the various watershed related organizations lie within our broader than the 7-county area. Okay. So I told you that we would move and take a close-up look at the metro area, and I'm not going to take long on these, but for those that have an interest, this very colorful map is the close-up of the Hennepin County watershed districts, the watershed organizations within Hennepin County. You can see quite a variety of colors. There are a large number. Hennepin County is really broken up into quite a significant number of watershed management organizations. Next is Ramsey County. Very hard to get one map. The one on the right is the best I came up with. The one on the left is a kind of a close-up view of what's called the capital region. But you can see on the map, the capital region is surrounded by the lower Mississippi, the Ramsey, Washington Metro, the Grass Lake, etc. That's even the Rice Creek Watershed District coming in at the very top up there in a pale green. Ramsey County also has a large number, but not quite anything like what Hennepin County looked like. Now, Washington County, this, by the way, I think this is a great map because it's a lot more clear to read with those color choices that they made, I think. But Washington County, look at it from north to south, which, you know, it's a long, skinny county. But there are, I believe, if I recall correctly, 8 different watershed organizations through that county. And they're bounded by the St. Croix River for the most part, bounded by the Mississippi down on their southern edge. And of course, they have Ramsey County and Anoka County to their west. But you can see again, there are some overlies up here. I'm going to try and point. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but in kind of a purple on this color, the Rice Creek Watershed District pops into it had been in Ramsey. It's in Washington County. We're actually going to find it, of course, in Anoka County as well. And I didn't mention it, but it was back there in Hennepin County. It is in a large number of jurisdictions. Now, this is Scott County. Scott County, remember, primarily has county administered watershed, with the exception of those 3 color, the orangey, the green, and the blue, which the one on the top, the orange, drifts down from Hennepin County. And then below that, they have a Prior Lake, Spring Lake Watershed District, which is really old. That one was formed right from the early beginning. And then they have a little encroachment that comes over from Dakota County, the Vermilion River. But if you look, there's a lot of white with the blue dots for various roads in the county. All that white is county administered watershed areas. And this right here along that northern edge is actually the Minnesota River there. And so you can imagine that the Minnesota River and how it flows into the Mississippi, that county has a significant body there that they have for administration. There we were. Okay, I jumped ahead. There's Dakota County now. And I mentioned earlier that the Vermilion River had creeped into Scott County. This is a large part that comes out of Dakota County, but you'll see that they have a handful of watershed district management organizations in there, but they also have in the yellow a large area that is actually county administered. And finally, we get to Anoka County. So this is our close-up view of the Anoka County watershed districts. This is actually found right at the Anoka County website. Very easy access for you to find this particular map and take a closer look. We have, if you see on the legend there, we actually have 7 bodies of watershed organizations. Remember that finger that I mentioned over in the southeast corner? That little finger is in part of Lino Lakes, and that is the Vadnais Lakes Area Watershed Management Organization that just creeps a little bit into Anoka County. The main bodies that administer watershed activity here in Anoka County are in the purple right around that finger. You've got that Rice Creek Watershed District. Next to it in kind of a bluish color is the Coon Creek Watershed District. Down below the Coon Creek Watershed District and right next to the part of Rice Creek that comes into the Fridley area, you'll see that part of the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, which is really, frankly, far more located in Minneapolis, but it also takes in part of our area. And since we have members from the Columbia Heights and the Fridley areas, and Hilltop perhaps, this comes into that area there. Up in the northern part of the county, you see that we have over in the Anoka Andover areas here, we have the lower Rum River Watershed Management Organization. Above it, in the northern western part of Anoka County, is the upper Rum River Water Management Organization. And over to the northeast corner, primarily Columbus, Linwood, part of East Bethel, little bit of Ham Lake there. That is the Sunrise River Watershed Management Organization. Now, what I want to do is primarily conclude tonight. We'll talk resources at the very end as well, but I'm going to primarily look with you at the 7 watershed management organizations that are found here in Anoka County, beginning with that smallest finger into the county there. You can see that on this map as well, where it gets just into Anoka County at the very north end there. This is the Vadnais Lakes Watershed Management Organization. I took from their website that they are a local government agency that is charged with protecting and enhancing water resources in the watershed, and they note that they cover approximately 25 square miles portions of Ramsey and Anoka County, and I've noted that that includes southeast Lino Lakes. Their office is located in Vadnais Heights City Hall, and I have just a little more information. Now, I am going to say right up front, I've taken this from their web pages this month, preparing for this PowerPoint. I don't know if their web pages are up to date and current. We have a Coon Creek person in our group today who may tell us clearly, hey, wait a minute, you don't have the right names. I'm just taking what I've got here, and I am guessing in some cases these are a bit out of date, but this is what the current listing at the website is. You can see that they have actual city officials, council members, and at least one mayor, mayor of Lino Lakes, that serves on their 6-person board. They also have identified 2 staff individuals, Phil Belfiore, who is the administrator, and I've taken Brian Corcoran, the water resources manager, and noted his name as well. This we're going to see is going to be a trend with a lot of these boards, not all of them, but we'll see that a lot of these boards have the responsibilities in hands of already elected officials representing those cities. Speaking of that, let's take a look at the Rice Creek Watershed District. You can see this, by the way, put this in perspective. It doesn't look that big here, but up on the north, that's the Forest Lake area. And the bottom southwest corner, that tail goes all the way into Minneapolis, folks. That is a really large organization. It is a very large, you can see in what I've listed, it covers over 200 square miles. That is in parts of Anoka, Ramsey, Washington, and Hennepin counties. And I've noted that here in Anoka County, it includes Columbia Heights, Fridley, Spring Lake Park, Blaine, Lexington, Circle Pines, Centerville, Lino Lakes, and Columbus. Their office is in Blaine. I've driven past their office over there on Pheasant Ridge Drive, a nice little area over there. And we actually have kind of a funky looking picture of the board there because I kind of was trying to adjust to get the board member list to fit on the screen properly. This is only a 5-member board, including, and I mentioned earlier about city officials, you'll recognize Jess Robertson's name. She's currently a council member in the city of Blaine. And I think you'll learn that the other individuals also have representations in their communities as well, representing Ramsey, Washington, Anoka, and not a representation from Hennepin County within that particular group at this time. The administrator is Nick Tomzik, and we noted that their office is located in Blaine. Another one that creeps a small part of Anoka County is the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization. I got to meet these folks last summer over in Fridley, a very nice group of people with some really excellent resource tools. I recommend talking to your watershed management organizations and getting help with things that will assist you in your home ownership and your property management. This particular body is working to protect and improve water quality, habitat, and natural resources in an urban watershed that drains directly into the Mississippi River, hence its name. Communities that it represents are Columbia Heights, Fridley, Hilltop, Lauderdale, Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, which I found fascinating, St. Anthony Village, and St. Paul. St. Paul has a very small little edge over on the east part of this. They have their office on Marshall Street. Some of us might recognize Marshall Street coming down from Coon Rapids Boulevard as it turns down East River Road and becomes Marshall Street. It's down off of 25th and Marshall in Minneapolis. And some more information, take a look at where all these folks are from. We have a chair from St. Anthony Village. The vice chair, Connie Buskins, is one of the council members of Columbia Heights. We have a treasurer from Minneapolis, Jeff Daines, former mayor of Lauderdale, Billy Menz from the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board, Mike Lukes from St. Paul, Tom Tilbury from Fridley. All of those communities are represented on a 7-person board. And then Kevin Reich and Nick Busey are executive director and person responsible for communications and projects for this particular watershed management organization. Now, the next group is who we are going to take a look at here in our particular organization. This is the first of 4, the Coon Creek Watershed District. What they do, what they've told us is that they are local government in central Anoka County that protecting our communities by reducing local flooding and water pollution. You can see that it includes the cities of Coon Rapids, Fridley, Spring Lake Park, Blaine, Columbus, Ham Lake, and Andover in Anoka County. You may recognize we're starting to have some city names that are overlapped. There are obviously chunks of those communities that are represented by different watershed districts or management organizations. Their office is located in Ham Lake, located not too far from our friends from Ham Lake, who I know live in that vicinity. What I love about this map, and if you look it up, take a look for this one if you need to get a bigger view of it. This is cool because it actually has all of the sectional areas identified and broken out. And I think that is actually a really important way of looking at these maps and seeing where they were. I happen to live in the Coon Creek Watershed District. I can basically find my house on that map based on knowing what township section I am in, which you always see on your property tax statements. And I think it's a really helpful way of visualizing this, really more so than any of the other maps were provided. So kudos to our friends at the the Coon Creek Watershed District. Got a nice picture. Now, I have to say, this may be one of those out-of-date ones. This is who is currently identified, and maybe Ms. Doring will help us update whether we have all the correct information. I have staff contacts of Tim Kelly, who I know is on our call this evening as well, Tim, and Corinne Elfelt. And identified, at least on the website, were Jim Hoffner, Aaron Lind, Mary Campbell, Dwight McCullough, and Jason Lund. Again, a mix of communities represented: Coon Rapids, Ham Lake, one member from Blaine represented on that particular district board. We're going to move on to our next one, and now we are done with watershed districts in Anoka County. We only have watershed management organizations remaining. The first of which, we're going to look at that northeast corner of Anoka County, the Sunrise River Water Management Organization. They are officed in East Bethel. They are composed of Linwood, East Bethel, Columbus, and Ham Lake members. They are, as we've heard on all of the others, they are working on water resources. I like the way they wrote this up, however. This arrangement is based upon the recognition that water-related issues and management rarely stop at municipal boundaries. The SRWMO's boundaries are defined by the west branch of the Sunrise River's watershed to the west and the south branch of the Sunrise's watershed to the south. To the north and east, the boundaries are defined by Anoka County's boundary. It does not extend into any other counties because watershed organizations are only required by law within the Twin City metropolitan area counties. So, for example, up on the north, it does not go into Isani County. Up on the very northeast, it does not go into Chisago County. It stops at the border. The folks that are part of this organization are from Columbus. You can see Janet Haglund and Tim Melchior. In East Bethel, Councilmember Brian Mundell and Leon Mager. In Ham Lake, I believe this is Mayor Brian Kirkham, and then Troy Woolens. And in Linwood Township, Kevin Kelly and John Olson. And we'll see Jamie Shervun's name again. He is a water resource specialist who is not only working with Sunrise, but he's also working with, I believe, our next in line, the Upper Rum River. And Upper Rum River is that northwestern part of Anoka County, and it is designated as a state scenic and recreational waterway, which I think the Rum River should indeed be so designated. Lake George and East Twin Lakes are part of this watershed as well. The cities within this watershed are St. Francis, Nowthen, Oak Grove, Andover, East Bethel, and Bethel, and they are officed at Oak Grove City Hall. I need to move this so I can get to the next screen. This is a pretty large board of directors because it actually is representing parts of 6 different cities. It has 12 board members. And again, as I noted, Jamie Shervun is the watershed coordinator. I'm going to guess at least a couple of these names may have been replaced since that screen was put at their website, but you'll see that Councilmember John West is the chair out of Oak Grove. The treasurer is also out of Oak Grove, Paul Tradewell. Nowthen is represented by Dan Brian and Shani Fladebow. City of St. Francis by Andrew Wood and Chris Bayette. Bethel, Patrick Sullivan, Ryan Seguin. East Bethel, Tim Miller and Raja Los. And Ham Lake again, Brian Kirkham again, and Jeff Ensminger. They are officed in Ham Lake again, very near where Coon Creek has their offices, and very near some of our friends in the Ham Lake area. And the last of the organizations here in Anoka County is the Lower Rum River Watershed Management Organization. This is located in the northwestern half of Andover, and it also is the cities of Anoka and Ramsey. As you can see, it's made up of folks from each of those cities that they are seeking to protect and improve lakes, rivers, and streams, groundwater, and other water resources across their municipal boundaries. Resources of particular importance include the Rum River, Trot Brook, numerous ditches that drain to the Rum River, Round Lake, Lake Itasca, and numerous wetlands, excuse me. And it also notes a very important note that the Mississippi River is the border on the southern edge of the jurisdiction. They have their offices actually in Anoka County Government Center in Anoka. And again, from the website, their membership from Andover included Val Holtus, who was vice chair. She is no longer a member of the council, so I don't know if she has remained on that organization. Kim Kovich from Andover staff is on that. Jeff Weaver, council member of Anoka. Phil Rice is their alternate. He is the mayor of Anoka. And representing the city of Ramsey, council member Deborah Musgrove and council member Chris Riley was identified as a board alternate. Their coordinator is Becky Wozni. Right. I'm going to then finish up with highlighting 5 resources for those of you that are interested in the topic. And I'm going to start with what I think is the best known and probably the best site. It's popularly called Bowser, and you will see why here. It is the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources, BWSR. So as we like to name acronyms, that goes by the name of Bowser. We also have the Minnesota Natural Resources Atlas, which I found very fascinating. Another great site is actually another state agency, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, which has a section on Twin Cities metro watersheds. If you like data, like the GPS data, try the Minnesota IT services for their watersheds data for Minnesota. Now this extends beyond the metro, but it is a really interesting resource tool. And then finally, looking really at Anoka County, the Know the Flow Anoka County Watershed Districts and Watershed Management Organization site it was very interesting and obviously very pertinent to what we were trying to do with our topic today. And that takes me to the last screen, which is taking questions. So I am going to stop my share at this point, and let's see what came up during the evening here.
But we do have Tim Kelly watching and Don Doring, and I got to know both of them well when I was on the Andover Council and Andover Mayor. And as community members, a lot of us learn about watersheds when we do something wrong and we get a letter, or we read something in the newspaper, some of the projects. And the thing that I really like that Dawn does, and Dawn, maybe we could have Dawn and Tim unmuted. She's very active with educating the public by using the city newsletters. And so in our last few minutes, I thought it would be great to hear a little bit about the perspective of the people who are trying to make us all smarter about this and where they feel like they've had some success. So Don, can you go ahead and unmute yourself and talk a little bit about the public education role?
Sure. My role at the district started with this intent in mind, was public education and involvement as well. And so we have found great partnerships and success with our cities, of which, Wes, you did a great job, and thank you. It's so interesting that you pulled that map from our website in particular. But we have 7 cities parties, so we don't, the only city we have entirely within our district is Coon Rapids. But we've had great success in getting information out, and a primary driver of that is in preventing pollution. And also in, for us is, as Wes had noted, preventing flooding too, as much as possible. But one of the big water pollutants in the whole country is stormwater. Stormwater is primarily urban and suburban in source. And so you'll see consistently newsletters about different aspects of pollutants that go into stormwater, and ones that we are particularly required to deal with, like phosphorus and sediment. And now chlorides are a new one we've been talking about for a while, but now it's official, and E. coli and bacteria. So we are focusing on those kinds of pollutant reductions and what citizens can do about it, and the different programs. And probably one of the biggest successes we've had in that way is Adopt a Drain. .org. And if you have any questions about that, let me know on the side. So I don't know if Tim, you want to address that as well.
No, you did a great job. Water in Minnesota has a very, very long and not a simple history. It really goes back to the formation of the soil and water districts, and Anoka County is one of the older soil and water districts in the state. The reason you mentioned there not being a soil and water district in Hennepin County, there once was. There is maybe a whole nother story, a bit of a sordid tale with that. But soil and water districts have their history in the New Deal and in farm payments and in farm conservation in the Dust Bowl. And SCS, the Soil Conservation Service, now the Natural Resource Conservation Service, can't be in a county, and therefore the farm payments can't occur unless there is a soil and water conservation district involved. Well, the whole industry has gotten way more complex, and soil and water districts, just like watershed districts, have been asked to take on different tasks. And so everybody's roles have grown and become more complicated and more involved, because water is involved in a lot of different things. So your question was about the water quality. Since I've been here, the district has gone through several distinct eras, and in my career in Minnesota, there was kind of the lake management era back in the 80s. In the 70s, it was the flood control era. In the 1980s, it was the lake era, and then it became a comprehensive watershed era. And then in 91, we went through the wetland era. And now we are in the water quality era, and we are on the doorstep of the groundwater era. None of the other eras go away, by the way. The legislature just focuses on an issue, and then the money is available for that. And so there are plentiful grants available right now for water quality, but not a whole lot of grants available for remedying flood control or dealing with groundwater. And so I'm glad that you noted the groundwater specialist position for Anoka County, horrendously needed in this county, and a great place for that position to be. The district wrote letters to the county board encouraging them. The most I've heard back was from one county board member that said, yeah, we need to get together and talk about that. And so that's, take that as a win, but there is a long way to go on that. I noticed that there was a question here about why are the lines so squiggly? The lines are squiggly because the boundaries of the organizations are the closest practical legal description to the hydrologic boundary. So we use the 51% rule. So if the boundary runs through the middle of a lot, which watershed district? We just got finished with a boundary amendment with the Sunrise. And so you basically have to go through and answer the question of which watershed district has the majority of the property, because ultimately it comes down to tax parcels and a recording of where the tax parcels are. So you get as close as you can. If you look at the old maps of Coon Creek, the boundary runs out into the middle of Coon Lake, which is obviously not a hydrologic divide, but that portion of Coon Lake back in the day was what's called a meandered property. So the Peterson farm actually owned the bed of the lake at one point. So the boundary was simply run out for convenience purposes and because there was a portion of the bed that they owned. And we, third
So
time's the charm. We
I
had
think we're
two other
getting,
applications, and the third one, we finally got that changed.
I think we're getting the idea that we're getting close to the wrap time where we got to conclude our comments and our programs. So I really appreciate a manager, district manager of a watershed that affects most of the people watching today and many of the people that will watch on the replay, watching the program so that you can help fill us in on some of the gaps. There's a lot to learn, and this study is really going to be about sharing information. It was a little bit overwhelming for most of us, I think, but the maps show us it affects a lot of Minnesota. We all know Minnesota has a lot of visible lakes. Groundwater is something the League of Women Voters advocated on as well because it's in line with our positions. So we also believe a groundwater specialist would be an important add for protecting water quality for our children, for ourselves and our children's future. So I just want to thank everybody for participating. We're going to stay tuned. Wes is going to lead us down the path of learning more. And I want to thank everyone for participating. Wes, thank you. And we hope we wish you the best of luck in the study, and those that want to pursue working with you on the study should contact you.
Well, and I want to thank both Dawn and Tim for being here tonight. Obviously, Glenda and Colleen and Mary Jo as well, but especially our guests, because I appreciate you coming in and sharing your expertise here at the end.